So welcome to the Train Aid Podcast 10. Today myself, Dom and Nick will be looking into what makes a good training course. So it's quite a generic sort of podcast today. We deliver sort of courses across the board really between us on the teaching, the assessing and the first aid. And so we're going to have a look at generally what we sort of think makes a good course, and we've sort of broken it down into the beginning, the middle and the end, if you like, in terms of the structure of a course. And we're going to give you a couple of ideas each and sort of share our thoughts on this topic. So to start off with, we're looking at the beginning, and I'll sort of get us underway. So my sort of key first point to get, if you like, was punctuality and preparation. For me, organisation, being prepared is pivotal. I've seen trainers over the years that rock up, turn up, just as the course is about to start, and occasionally it has happened to me for various reasons. Could be transport or a disaster or something, but it puts you under extreme pressure. It's not something you want to be putting yourself under regularly. So obviously, if you're going in-house to a company, actually having a look at the logistics, where it is, where you're going to park, what time you want into the building. We tend to say to our trainers, you should be there at least 30 minutes before. Me personally, I sort of aim for an hour. Because you don't want to be there at the same time as your delegates, your learners. You want to be in there before them. So I think it's always important to plan ahead, in terms of how you're going to get there. Make sure you can access the building, get in there, set up the room. It's nice if you then, you're all set up when the first learners arrive. I think it just gives a sort of great sort of initial start to the course, and people sort of think, okay, this trainer's organised, and it's a good starting point before you get underway.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sort of is a great hallmark of any teacher or trainer if they are prepared, especially when we deliver in-house courses, because managers can think, oh, you know what, this trainer's done their homework, they've done some background reading about the organisation, about the housekeeping rules. And I think it's a really sort of polished aspect of a trainer or teacher if they've done some background reading, some work in regards to the course, and they've got an active interest, and they've got a really good insight into the company. They're raring to go. But I agree with Tom. If we can arrive typically an hour beforehand, get used to the surroundings, I think it goes a long way. And also for the delegates, they can see that the trainer, the teacher, has relaxed themselves, and if they are relaxed, everyone's going to feel at ease, and it's going to be a great start to the course.
Yeah, I agree. Just from my point of view, I think when I'm running late, I feel incredibly stressed. And it's hard for that not to feed into the beginning of your lesson, really. Yeah. Especially driving around London, sitting in the car in traffic, knowing that you're going to be late is a horrible feeling. It just sets everything off as a much nicer pace.
I agree.
Okay. Cool. Who was icebreakers?
That was myself. So, again at the beginning, icebreakers, they're pretty commonplace in all of our teaching courses that we use. They're a great way, obviously, to test learners' knowledge on a subject before you begin. Find out any individual needs of a learner that you might need to be aware of. But it's also a good thing to kind of get learners relaxed as well, and keep them engaged. I find that if you talk too much at the beginning of a lesson, learners will lose interest and might lose concentration quite quickly. So getting a fun sort of icebreaker activity in there early, is a kind of a real good way to sort of create a bit of a convivial atmosphere in the group. Yeah,
I think any early interaction amongst you and your learners always helps people relax. And even if you go sort of in-house and they all know each other already, you can still do an icebreaker, because obviously the icebreaker's for you as well, to get to know names and personalities. Obviously you're not going to start saying to them, if it's in-house, get to know the person, but you can still do something fun where you get them chatting and ease people into the course, and then obviously sort of introduce yourself. And I think definitely it's a good way to start a course. Icebreakers shouldn't make people feel awkward or uncomfortable or anything, so choose them wisely and appreciate the fact you have different personalities in a group, and some won't be as keen as others to sort of contribute, but definitely a great sort of approach to have somewhere near the beginning of your course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most effective icebreakers are those that are quite short and snappy, not too lengthy, because you have to introduce the course and really get the course rolling as quickly as possible. So I think something which, you know, says your name, your background very briefly, perhaps hobbies and interests, but then move on to the next person quite quickly.
Yeah.
And so you're keeping the attention of everyone, but it's vital to start the course on the front foot, get through that icebreaker quickly, and then get into the nitty-gritty of the course, and then on to perhaps your first activity, whatever that might be.
Yeah. I think that's really true what you said. Keep them short and snappy, because icebreakers can be some people's worst nightmare, can't they?
I've seen some horrific things
and talk for hours
over the years where someone says, "Okay, can start the course off. Can everyone please act out their favourite animal?" I mean, imagine putting people under pressure, saying crazy like that. So obviously, you know, I think also they should double up sometimes as a form of initial assessment, which leads nicely into our third point there. Nick, which I believe is one of your ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So initial assessments, as we know, these are much more robust than an icebreaker. They're more formal. So typical initial assessments could be a phone conversation with the learners, an email with an application form, or an interview, so to speak. So initial assessments, they serve to find out the knowledge, the skill set of the learner, to see whether or not they're suitable for the course or qualification, and to find out whether the learner requires any support. So ourselves as teachers and trainers, we can find out the motivation, the learning requirements of the learner, and we can make tweaks and changes to the course structure. So it's a really good insight, I think, to do an initial assessment. I personally use the application form via email to send that out to all learners. They return to me with their background, their current skills, so I can see, you know, if they require any changes or any support needs as well. I think it's a real sort of comfortable approach to find out and ask the question, what can I do to support you as your teacher? So I think it's a good thing that you ask that question first of all, and then they can disclose if they've got any required learning needs, and we can make those changes to the teaching materials, for example. I think it's a really good way to get to know your learners and to find out how you can best support them.
I think depending on the course though as well, depending where you're going, obviously in an ideal world, always had thorough initial assessments, you know all about your group in advance, but in reality we all know that's not the case in the world of training, and it could be you don't know too much. So coming back to your sort of the icebreakers, you know, they can double up, can't they, as initial assessments, and you're surprised on how much you can find out within a group in 5 minutes just from you know, doubling up the icebreaker. So it's finding out about their roles and what they do and their experiences, because that helps you to sort of you know, merge and get some sort of rapport with them nice and early on. But yeah, we do obviously, you know, practice what we preach. We on the teacher training courses, assessing courses, we talk about initial assessments and the importance of them, and finding out what individual learning needs, you know, some of your delegates might have, because sometimes, as you were saying, Nick, you've got to, if you're going to amend resources and stuff like that, then you know, or you know, actually make changes to resources for learners, then you often need to know about that in advance.
I think one thing that I've personally found, even with initial assessments, you can send application forms, but sometimes on a course a learner might pull you to one side and they might say, you know what, I've got dyslexia, but I didn't want to put that on the application form. And so I think sometimes you need to be flexible, you need to be lenient, and understand that, you know, a sort of downfall about application forms is that learners can't really elaborate on those questions. So I think when starting a course, I think it does sort of tie in with icebreakers as well, just to try to make it kind of an open atmosphere that learners might sort of say something to you where you know what, I think I do need some further support. And so I think it's, yes, we do have a robust initial assessment approach, but still, you know, further down the line with your lessons, they may say something to you. And I think it's a good hallmark of being adaptable, understanding, and then, you know, hopefully you can go forward as one with the learners and make the course more flexible and adaptable that way.
Yeah, I think that's more the case in first aid courses where they're not, you know, there's not as much as a formal application process. So the initial assessment is a lot more verbal. Always asking people, you know, talking about what we're going to be talking about. A lot of it is quite a heavy conversation you're going to have with people. So making sure people are comfortable in that, and if anybody needs any additional breaks. Another thing I do with first aid courses is actually maybe having to think about who I'm delivering the course for. So, you know, if it's a group of GPs, for example, I might need to adjust some of the content slightly, or the way it's taught, as if I was, you know, in a factory or a school or something.
Of course.
So that's another way of doing it.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah, good points. My next one on there, please. First impressions. I've always been a big believer in this. I think you can lose the room pretty quickly as a trainer or as a teacher, and you know, first impressions count for a lot. So obviously, it comes back to me talking about being there early and punctual, and I think that is obviously a good first impression. But then having a bit of energy and a bit of enthusiasm and passion. I used to sort of tell the new teachers when I worked in the colleges about this, you know, you're actually meeting, greeting your actual learners. So, you know, welcome them in. Hopefully you've got a nice good setup in there. Their resources are out, chatting to them straight away, the ones that get there first. And I think that goes a long way, having a sort of genuine interest in them. You know, you can almost start your icebreaker initial assessment with the first people that are in there. And yeah, I think that is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think things like eye contact goes a long way. Greeting your learners.
Active listening as well. So if people are talking, you're not just you know, you're actually listening to them, getting to know them. You're building respect and rapport straight away. Then. And I think people have confidence. If you're there, if you're confident, you're chatting to them. Then they start to realise you've got obviously good subject knowledge, and they're thinking, okay, you know, we're in safe hands here, and I think it's a good start to a course.
I think a point you made was about just standing perhaps by the door, you know, greeting learners as they come through the door rather than sitting down. So you're present, you've got that positive body language, asking how's your day going so far, welcome to the teaching environment. So I think that's a really good first impression, and I think that
it sets the tone, doesn't it? I mean, when I worked in the colleges, the 16 to 19 year olds, it could be the last lesson of the day, and maybe people are a bit wilted, but meet them in the corridor. I used to, you know, have a little joke with them, sort of, you know, who's up for this lesson? I'm up for it, and they're like, you know, straight they're like, okay, sort of sets the tone for the lesson ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect,
Yeah, I think trying to create a good rapport with your learners as well. So if you can, you know, using name tags or using the register to know their names, you know, speaking to people by their name early on, people are always, you know, they're quite impressed by that. And I think, that sets you up on a good course if you do that early on.
Yeah, if you can get names early on, if you can get names without name tags or labels, then that's pretty impressive. The little sneaky trick is I always wait for them to sit down and I send the register round in the positions they're in, and I have that at the front. And if you can start going, okay, Sarah, Mark, you know, in the first thing, they're like, wow, he knows names already. So I think that's again another good sort of first impression, makes it personable straight away. Yeah.
Ground rules and respect was me, wasn't it? So, leading on from kind of icebreakers, really, what I often will like to do is talk about what everybody's hoping to get from the course, and then maybe get them to talk about how they, you know, what they think respect is in a classroom setting. So what they expect from other learners and expect from each other. It's another way you can get them sort of talking together. Also, setting out good ground rules is really important, part of your planning stage. You don't want a chaotic environment when you're teaching, everybody talking over each other.
Yeah.
A bit like the planning when we did this podcast, you know, we ironed out who was going to say what, so it's running nice and smoothly.
That's why it's going so smoothly.
Yeah.
Ground rules definitely. I think you can come unstuck with ground rules. Sometimes you can make the assumption in the world of adult training, we're teaching adults, you know, everyone's going to behave as you'd expect them to, I guess, respectfully. But yeah, I tend to double up a little bit with the housekeeping. So when I do the housekeeping at the start of the course, and I talk about, you know, okay, fire alarms, exits, you know, breaks, that sort of thing, and then I blend it into that, because then I find you're not sort of like preaching to adults, these are the rules sort of thing. I'm saying I will mention mobile phones, or I'll mention punctuality after breaks, and then, as you're saying, the fact that we're going to be discussing a lot of subjects and that, and people are going to have personal opinions, but obviously to keep that sort of respect level in there. You know, probably previously made mistakes, I guess, of not maybe mentioning ground rules and stuff, and then all of a sudden you find yourself a couple of hours in and people are being quite sort of rude, I guess, with phones and things like that, and then you've almost got to backtrack. So at least if you mention it in a nice, polite way at the beginning, and you know it applies for you as well, you're not going to be there on your phone or that, and then you're going to be punctual, then I think it sets the tone sort of nicely, really.
Yeah, 100%. I think for those courses where you're with learners for typically 3 to 5 days, there is the option of using perhaps flip chart paper just to get learners to list down the ground rules, so you give them that responsibility, and perhaps give them perhaps a 5-minute task for the group to list down all of those rules that they should follow. And some teachers, they ask learners to sign the flip chart paper, and then they post it on the wall for everyone to see. So these are the agreed list of rules. I think it goes down quite well. Some learners enjoy that process. It is very straightforward, but I feel that once they have that classroom contract, everyone knows how to behave, and it's generally a very positive, cohesive atmosphere once that task is done.
I really like that activity. It gives them some sort of ownership over what the ground rules are, because they've come up with them themselves, so they're more likely to sort of stick to them and abide by them.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay, so then our last one in this sort of section there, stimulants, which I believe this is one of yours, Nick, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I mean by this is perhaps having an activity on the desks when learners first walk into the classroom, so it sparks their interest. So it could be a starter activity with the instructions on the board, and so when they come in, perhaps they are talking to their peers, but when they see that activity, they begin to focus, they sit down, they engage. It could be something on the board, such as a news article. It could even be music that they come into thinking, oh, what's that? That's really interesting. So I think it goes alongside punctuality, preparation, first impressions. So when they come down, they settle, they're engaged, and they begin to think about what is the topic of today's lesson. And I think it really does work wonders. And if one learner starts this activity, there's also kind of that snowball effect that everyone sort of twigs, and everyone starts to really sort of engage, and they can start their task. It could even be, perhaps a recap activity, a quiz with perhaps list 5 key points from the previous lesson, so they can obviously start writing, and it starts the lesson on time, and you're in control of the teacher by giving them that task to do straight away. I really like that approach.
Yeah, even having if you're going to give them a handbook, or you're going to get a work pack and they get a pen, if that's all sitting in their place when they sit down, you see straight away people start sort of looking. It stimulates them. Back when I used to teach in the colleges, I used to find, because you can get quite a lot of off-task chatter, if you like, at the beginning, and people come in all in waves and different timings. So if you could have like a word search or something in front of them, and then it creates a little bit of, they come down, they settle down, a little bit of competition. Maybe there's a small prize, something tangible for the first person, then that sort of settles people in quite quickly. So I think that's definitely good ideas to get people interested and underway nice and early when they come into the training room.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as I said, it leads on from icebreakers a bit, really. Just making sure you're not just talking for the first period of the lesson. I read something interestingly about, I think most people's attention span will last for about 15 minutes when somebody is talking to them.
Okay.
Good idea.
Anyone watching this has switched off now then.
I think we're alright for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to get that in early.
Yeah, excellent point.
Okay, so that sort of, I guess, brings us nicely to the end of that sort of first section. So, I think some really sort of good points there about actually starting well on a course and sort of getting people's attention, and hopefully that sets you up nicely for the rest of the day, really.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool. Okay.
Thanks.